What's going on, everybody? It is the one and only Q here from Retro Q Gaming, and well, here we are with our 72nd episode. Who knew it would go on for this long of our Quack experimental podcast? Now, not much to talk about this week, but there is a decent amount to talk about of the few topics we do. So let's jump right into it, shall we? First off, we're going to talk about AMD. Now, AMD is a company that makes CPUs and GPUs. Mainly. Now, typically, when it came to CPUs, AMD had been pretty much 100% irrelevant for about a decade, until they finally came out with Ryzen. Ryzen 1 was a catch-up, Ryzen 2 was viable, and Ryzen 3 was an equal, or third-gen Ryzen, because we all know Zen 3 properly isn't out yet. Anyway, at least not the desktop versions, we have mobile versions. But the point is, they also make GPUs. However, unfortunately, because it has a knock-on effect of NVIDIA, AMD have been completely irrelevant in GPUs pretty much always. Pretty much always. Even back when they had the ATI stuff, or well, when they bought ATI, even back then ATI was so far out of the game when it came to GPUs, and it looks like they still are. Because AMD has moved over and started selling bicycles. That's right, you heard that correctly. Bicycles. Because their GPUs just can't cut it. Now, case in point, the Big Navi. New reports, new leaks, new benchmarks that can reasonably be assumed to be Big Navi are all saying that AMD are going to cut the price of the Big Navi. Simply because of the Ampere reveal from NVIDIA and what they have shown they can do with the 3070, 3080, and 3090. Now, supposedly, there's going to be two variants of whatever 6000 series card they come out with. Maybe it'll be a 6600 or a 6700, or maybe it'll be a 6700 and a 6700 XT, or something along those lines. But apparently, there's going to be a 16GB and 8GB version of the card. So basically, whatever the two cards are, they'll probably be exactly the same thing, just with less RAM, or well, more or less RAM, two different configurations. So apparently the original idea and the original pricing scheme was going to be $599 and $499, but now supposedly they're going to be planning for $549 and $499. Obviously it's going to be the more expensive one will be the 16GB card, and then the lower priced one will be the 8GB card. Now, the big problem with this is performance wise, the 16GB version of this card, which is obviously the more expensive version of it, is rumored to be somewhere between the 3070 and the 3080. So basically, it's a bit worse than the 3080 and a little better than the 3070. So, of course, since everyone wants the 3070, which is better, if this is all to be believed at least anyway, is better than whatever AMD are going to come out with, well, for 700, for an extra 150, you're going to get a big performance gain on there. But not only with that, not only are you losing out on just the raw power and performance, probably the most important thing in the modern era you're losing out on are all the specific NVIDIA features, especially with the new stuff coming like RTX IO. Fair enough, RTX ray tracing is a whole other thing that does already exist. Big thing for a lot of people too can be DLSS 2.0. I'm not a fan of it myself. G-Sync is obviously very important. For some people, RTX Broadcast, RTX Reflex, so many GameWorks features, Shadowplay, etc., etc., etc. And not only that, but not only would you be losing out on the physical card specs and performance from just the physical hardware alone, then you have to deal with AMD drivers. AMD drivers are notorious for how poor they are. Sure, apparently they've made it back and come back a decent amount in the last couple of years, but apparently they've gone from absolute shite to just kinda shite. So it's it's not looking pretty good there. So basically, for all intents and purposes, unless you're pretty much a fanboy, Big Navi is dead. Big Navi is worthless if this all turns out to be true, and Big Navi is absolutely nothing. But moving on to something that's completely the opposite and not worthless, not useless, and not dead on arrival. Well, we're going to talk about CD Projekt Red, specifically Cyberpunk 2077, of course, because naturally that's their big game coming soon. Now, first off, a couple of things here. They're expected to reveal the DLC plans very, very soon. They have said that. They haven't given the full details and all just yet. They haven't given the full reveal date or the full details, but it's coming soon. Now, everyone is assuming two different types of things here. Everyone is assuming small free content updates with minor additions and minor refinements and stuff, a la Witcher 3. And some people are also expecting the proper full paid DLC to be huge Witcher 3 tier proper expansions as well. Really see where I'm going with this Witcher 3 comparison. But hey, same studio. Now, there's a couple of things going around at the moment as well. So you do have to be very careful with the information regarding the next piece we're about to talk about here when it comes to Cyberpunk. So, you will see places out there that will clickbait titles that will specifically mislead you until you get in and start reading. That's a lot of the time. Now, it's a bit of a semantic issue. So, neither company is in the right, but neither company is in the wrong. It's all smoke and mirrors, which is why you have to be completely, especially careful when it comes to all these scumbag companies. Their marketing, their clickbaiting, whatever it is. So, first off, it is confirmed that there are no microtransactions in Cyberpunk 2077's single-player campaign. Now, this is where it all gets muddy. So, people at Cyberpunk, people at CD Projekt Red, project leads, PR, whatever it is, they're specifically taking to Twitter and other media outlets and social media and all as well, to specifically say, oh, look at all these websites and all these YouTubers, they're putting out all this clickbait, don't believe their lies, there are no microtransactions in Cyberpunk 2077. Now, this is where, like I said, it gets very confusing. The people at CD Projekt Red are specifically listing Cyberpunk 2077 as a single-player only experience. The whole multiplayer thing, which is confirmed to be coming, and is confirmed to be coming post-launch, they're not counting that. They're basically saying Cyberpunk 2077 is only the single-player story campaign mode, and there will be no microtransactions for that. So, from what I understand, there will be no microtransactions for the single player story mode stuff in Cyberpunk 2077. So you can make a judge for yourself on this, who's correct and who's not, who's clickbaiting and who's not. But remember, it is confirmed by CD Projekt Red that the multiplayer version, the multiplayer portion, will be added post-launch. Maybe it won't be called Cyberpunk 2077. Maybe it's called Cyberpunk Online, or maybe it has a completely different name. But it is confirmed to have microtransactions. They will not be aggressive, according to them, and they wouldn't say what they're going to be as well. And apparently it's also not going to upset the players. They kind of went for the whole thing that they'll be good value, if you will, and that they would be done in a way, and they would balance the game in a way that would make players happy to spend the money and want to spend the money to kind of support it or get whatever they're getting for it. But you see the point here. So, long story short, developers specifically listing Cyberpunk 2077 as a solo single-player campaign experience and will have no microtransactions, but have confirmed that there will be a type of multiplayer portion or something added later. Maybe it won't have the same name, and that one is confirmed to have microtransactions. That's the long and short of it. TLDR, basically. I don't care about the multiplayer myself. I just want the damn single player experience on my glorious RTX 3090, and it's going to be absolutely amazing. RTX on, baby. But speaking of the future next gen game that is Cyberpunk, at least on PC, on an RTX 3090 anyway, well, we do have some other next-gen upgrades, because frankly, it's getting a bit ridiculous at this point, because let's face it, right? Between companies charging for upgrades in a special current-gen edition, to Nintendo's zero-effort ports, and of course, who could forget when 505 Games and Control and Remedy released Game of the Year edition that included all the DLC and the next-gen upgrades. But this company, not sure who is specifically responsible for it, probably 505 Games, it's usually their call as the publisher. Well, you might remember that they said that the reason why it's done this way is because upgrading the original version owners was not possible, or were not possible, because they were saying that they wouldn't be able to convert everything over. There's only one SKU that they can update to the more modern version. So you've got people who have a digital deluxe version with a season pass. You've got people who just have a very basic edition digital, very basic edition physical without the DLC, or maybe with the season pass added separate but not counting as the digital deluxe. Either way, it was a mess, and it was just a greedy way for them to say, hey, well, you can buy the Game of the Year edition, comes with the next gen upgrades and all the DLC. This is why we play on PC, guys. We get treated like adults, and, well, we don't get ripped off like scum. Anyway, back to the point we have here. Now, so, not only did they say it was not possible to upgrade owners like that, well, wouldn't you know who won the pony? 505 Games, the publisher, automatically upgraded many people to the Ultimate Edition. They upgraded many people who had the basic, some form of the basic edition, be it standard plus season pass, or complete digital deluxe version. They upgraded them to the Ultimate Edition, which enabled them to get a next gen upgrade for free, before eventually revoking all of this completely. Remember when they said this was impossible? Yeah, that's going to be a yikes for me, dog. But it looks like that it's not only 505 Games taking a massive L lately when it comes to next generation, because now we have Microsoft taking yet another L. But this time, it's not the Xbox Series L. This time we have the Xbox Series S, which, while has already several L's as it is, this one gets its own unique next-gen lower-powered L, which is completely on brand for Microsoft and their whole next-gen lately, right? Anyway, the big thing here is that it is confirmed that Xbox Series S, or should that be, say, Xbox Series small L maybe? I don't know. It's confirmed that they cannot play the Xbox One X enhanced versions of Xbox One backwards compatible games. I'm going to say that one more time because it's a little bit messy. Xbox Series S cannot play the Xbox One X enhanced versions of backwards compatible Xbox One games. It will play the standard Xbox One S version of the backwards compatibility. There's a little asterisk beside that, but anyway, we'll get onto that in a moment. 10 gigabytes of RAM in the Xbox Series S versus the 12 gigabytes of RAM in the Xbox One X. Now, despite the Xbox Series S having a newer GPU, like say the Xbox, well, basically like the Xbox Series S does have, technically it does do things a little bit more efficiently. However, the Xbox Series S, the RAM in there, the 10 gigabytes, is also, believe it or not, a lot slower than the RAM and the bus on the Xbox One X. So due to the slower speed of the memory bus, the bandwidth, and the Xbox One and Xbox Series S RAM, the Xbox One X is around 50% faster, RAM-wise at least anyway, than the Xbox Series S. Now remember, that's not to say that the Xbox One X is more powerful, because it does not have anywhere close to a more advanced GPU. There's just obvious other limitations in here as well. So yes, your next-gen console, if you will play previous games worse than was available on old hardware. That's a giant L. Now, one thing I will say in its favor, not even in its favor, it's kind of should be considered a bare minimum at this point, shouldn't even really be factored in. But because it can't play the Xbox One X enhanced version, so basically a lot of games you're going to get not 4K resolution, not 4K textures, you're not going to get all those extra benefits and all too. However, it will include a couple of optimizations that the Xbox Series S, and I guess the Xbox Series X in a way, run natively in backwards compatibility. That is, it will run at a higher frame rate, if applicable, and if the space for it and all is there, and if there's no cap and all. It will run at slightly higher resolution because of how the backwards compatibility runs on Xbox Series S. The games will kind of automatically natively run at 1440p, which is what Xbox Series S is primarily designed to output as. Expect a lot of 1080p as well though, but we're talking backwards compatibility here as well. So like I said, it will do 1440p. You will get, if there's a dynamic resolution, you'll get more higher resolution in there as well. You will also get a more stable frame rate in a lot of the stuff too, but it will also make use of stuff along the lines of the auto HDR, pseudo HDR at least anyway, features, and better load times because of the SSDs. But this one is just absolutely laughable. The Xbox Series S is something I said that if it did exist, because we weren't sure until recently, that if it did exist, just should not exist in any way, shape, and form. Developers are speaking out about it, about how much of a piece of shit it is. Other tech journalists and tech people are speaking out about it too. And frankly, if you buy a $299 Xbox Series S, imagine putting in something from your Xbox One X and it plays worse. That's next gen as fuck right there. At least for Microsoft anyway. But we do have one other quick one to talk about as well, this time from the blue camp instead of the green camp. Sony have announced that there will be a new PS5 showcase this week. Now this was pretty much expected because we all knew that as soon as Microsoft did finally lift the lid off their Xbox Series L and Xbox Series S prices and release dates, that we all knew we were going to get something from Sony relatively shortly after because, well, they were just holding out for it anyway. So what are we talking about here? Well, Sony are doing a PS5 showcase on Wednesday the 16th of September. That is this coming Wednesday, 9 p.m. BST. That is my time because you can work around however it is from there. We will be streaming and of course we'll be going live about 15 minutes beforehand, probably about 8:45, maybe 8:50. We'll speculate and we'll gesticulate and articulate and pontificate and whatever we need to do. But it's going to be roughly 40 minutes long. They've said that it's going to be of games for launch and beyond, so we will probably see some stuff within the launch window, which is usually the first 6 months. We might see something coming out within maybe 2021, even if it's Christmas 2021 maybe. We might even see just the announcement of, say, hey, here's a game we've just started working on. We'll see you in 4 years, or something along those lines anyway. It's going to be all big stuff from first party and third party. I imagine there will be obviously first party exclusive games. There will probably likely be third-party multi-platform games, third-party probably timed exclusive games, and maybe just some third-party full exclusive games, if you will, as well. Price and exact date, maybe, possibly, we just don't know yet. It is listed as a games showcase for launch, but they haven't specifically said no hardware news like they have with some of the other stuff. But I guess it would be nice to have, because, well, I'm sure as console gamers, you guys aren't used to being treated like adults by the companies that you corporate slave for. So, yeah, why it's fun to be a PC gamer, because the companies actually treat us right. Why? Well, because we're adults, and we know that. Anyway, that is pretty much it for this week, except for one final extra little thing in here as well. Q, what's going on? What's up? What's going down? What's going on? I said that one already. What's the 411? What are you doing? Anyway, so we've got a couple of things to talk about here. First off, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze is done. It is complete. We are finally out of the way. We almost got screwed on a couple of different parts. Controls on that game are a bit of a mess. There's some horrible delay and horrible dead zones in there too, and just some stuff that does not want to work until it randomly wants to work, and well, we lost about 40 lives on it at that point. Now, having said that, we are going to be moving on to streaming some other stuff, some old school retro games, specifically hopefully some RPGs and whatnot as well, being the main thing to focus on there. But, well, I've wanted to stream some, and I've been having nothing but problems when it comes to my capture cards and streaming on external stuff. Consoles lately, I've had problems with Wii U, I've had problems with certain capture cards. Pretty much all my capture cards are starting to give me issues, be it something with the capture card software, something with the capture card drivers, something with the capture cards themselves, or something with compatibility issues where just for some reason they stop working in other software and all as well. It's becoming an absolute nightmare. So we do have a way around that and a way to alleviate that, which we'll talk about in a moment. But what I do want to do is, when I finally get set up and running and I finally get it acceptable and all as well to do from the console side of it, I was planning on streaming Mystic Quest Legend, and that will be coming soon. That's Final Fantasy Mystic Quest for you guys out there. I started it the other day on stream, and then everything just shit the bed about 7 minutes in, so I just gave up, and I decided to break down and combat that whole thing. A couple of other ones in there. Chrono Trigger is hopefully coming as well. I will likely be playing Chrono Trigger on the native PC version, which means I will have no problem streaming that and no issues, because stuff like that actually works here. But what I am happy to announce and happy to talk about now is that because of all of these issues that I've been having when it comes to some of this stuff, I've decided that I'm going to figure out a way around it. Basically, I had a couple of ideas. Number one, remember my old PC that you would have had me using for years and years when I first started, right before I built this big one that I'm using right now, this one in 2016 when the GTX 1080 came out? Well, I dug out my old computer. It's just been sitting in the other room for about 4 years, completely dormant and gathering dust. That was a fun thing to do, by the way. So, last night, I completely formatted that computer. Or at least I almost completely formatted. I uninstalled practically everything. I didn't format it completely because I don't have a disk drive anymore. It's in this computer, and I didn't want to swap it all around. And to be honest, I was too lazy to just put the installer on a USB key and go from there. But anyway, what I did was I worked kind of a way around it to get to the point where I could just use that as a streaming box. However, it did not come to fruition because, well, Windows 7, a couple of other issues, mechanical hard drives, ooh, terrible. So I eventually just said, fuck it. What I was going to do is when I do build my RTX 3090, probably AMD Zen 3/4000 series computer later this year, well, I was going to turn this one into a render box / streaming computer. However, that's probably still, most likely, 2 to 3 months away. Something I'm not willing to do. I'm kind of an impatient guy. So, what I am going to do, or what I've already done as of earlier today, well, I'm still going to turn this computer into a render box. Not a streaming device, not a streaming box. I'm going to turn this computer into a render box when I get my new one, when I build my new one. But in the meantime, and at the same time, even while this one is rendering, earlier today I bought a laptop. It's an okay laptop. It's what I need spec-wise for what I'm doing. So this laptop I bought earlier, it's got an AMD Ryzen 7 3rd generation chip, a 3750 I believe it is. It also comes with a GTX 1660 Ti, comes with 16 gigabytes of RAM, and of course an M.2 512 gig SSD. This laptop is going to be almost exclusively for streaming. That is going to be my streaming box. Now, of course, it's a laptop. I'm going to take it with me in places and do other stuff as well, especially with something else I'm going to mention after this gaming-related stuff as well. So that at home is essentially going to be my streaming box. That's it. That is only going to have updated Windows drivers on it, updated graphics card drivers on it. I'm going to install the proper software and proper drivers for the likes of my capture cards, or, well, we'll talk about that in a moment too, but my important capture cards for that one, as well as stuff like maybe OBS or Streamlabs OBS, just so everything is working perfectly. And there's the bare minimum of extra stuff on there. There's the bare minimum of what I need on there. Microphone drivers and all too, of course. Now, not only that, well, usually when I stream external stuff, typically I will use my relatively old at this point Elgato Game Capture HD60. Not a HD60S, not a HD60S Plus, just a regular old HD60. Can do up to 1080p 60 frames per second. Pretty good in that way. Has a bit of delay on the game capture side of it, simply because it's USB 2.0. So, I also, if you exclude my really, really old capture card, I also have internally a PCIe card in this computer here, which can capture 4K 60, and it can do that stuff pretty well when it wants to work, which, if anyone's seen my Tony Hawk stream from the other night, the first of the two, well, we knows it's been having some problems in this one lately. But that is beside the point. Now, this is where I took this opportunity to buy a new capture card today as well. That's right, I dropped almost $2,000 on upgrades, streaming upgrades, for today. It's going to be fun. So, I also picked up an Elgato 4K 60 FPS. I believe it's called HD 4K 60S Plus or something like that. It's their big new fancy one. Their big new external fancy one. USB 3, built-in SD card slot to record straight to there as well. But thankfully, I can use that for current upgraded consoles. I can use it for next generation consoles, and I can even use it on my older stuff at the same time as well. So it's going to be pretty beast. It's going to be pretty baller. Looking forward to that. Naturally, when I was picking out a laptop, I made sure to factor in the hardware specs for that. A lot of the stuff I was looking at were all 8 gigabytes of RAM. I looked at the spec for this card. It said 16 gigabytes are the recommended one to use it. So I made sure to get a slightly better graphics card. I moved up from, most stuff was offering me a 1050 or a 1050 Ti. I made sure to move up to a 1660 Ti so I could get a good chip to go with it. And of course, 16 gigabytes of RAM. So I will be able to do all my old stuff, all my new stuff, live stream, capture, record, whatever it is, all on this stuff and all on this device. So it cost me about €1,600 or so, give or take. I don't remember the exact 100% specifics after conversion because it's all UK pounds I bought them in. But it's going to be worth it. But you know what's going to kill me that little bit more? In about 11 days from now, I have to spend another 15 or €1,600 on a 3090. It's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it, but my bank account is going to be absolutely howling just because all that money. I mean, I'd probably go to buy lunch or something like that with my debit card and it will just set on fire at that point. But anyway, the reason why I went with a laptop and not a small kind of mini PC or anything like that as well is because just a few days I re-enrolled in college. That's right, I am going back to college. I'll still be working full-time as well. I'm going to night college, so all my classes will be at night. That's going to be fun for a while because, yeah, I have to make sure I either take those days off or else just leave work a couple of hours early and then get ready and go to college. And whoops, there goes most of my night probably, and probably my whole day is yikes. But anyway, that's the point. That doesn't start until the start of October, so I do have a couple more weeks before I have to worry about that. But naturally, having a laptop for that is brilliant as well. Because believe it or not, I don't actually have a proper laptop. I'm just a big PC guy. Although, I guess technically I do have my old Sony Vaio from like 2007, which still has a better screen and higher resolution than modern consoles. 1920 by 1200, baby. And that shit's 13 years old. Blu-ray burner, even has a GeForce 7600 GT Go. Pretty poor graphics card. You really only use it to play Final Fantasy 11 and Half-Life 2. But yeah, you get the idea. So that's the story with all of that anyway. The capture card and the laptop should be here midweek. So until then, I'm going to figure out something. Maybe I'll stream with the PC and Chrono Trigger in the meantime. But I want to be able to do all that anyway. I'm kind of rambly, so let's just get off that. Because we are done here with our 72nd episode of our Quack Experimental Podcast. As always, feel free to hit up the comment section below for whatever reason it is. Thoughts, comments, feelings, opinions, praise, salt, butthurt, whatever it is. That's what it's there for. Anyway, in the meantime, of course, I want to thank everyone, as always, for sticking with me through all of this. And remember, hit the appropriate button to let me know how I did on the video. And while you're at it, why not head on over, hit the subscribe button, and even ring the little notification bell. So you can be one of those beautiful, beautiful few people to get the lovely notification when these amazingly high-quality produced episodes come out every weekend. Of course, in the meantime, I want to thank everyone for watching. And remember that winners don't play switch ports.